I've never really had like a full like drink of alcohol. So it's, yeah, like I said, I really don't see it adding into anything in my life. And I don't see that it's not taking anything away from me that I'm not doing it. So yeah, I really have no interest, but I do like soda here and there.
I think, especially my perspective is interesting because when I asked you coming in, I also wasn't drinking, and that's why I asked you. And that was the case freshman year. Sophomore year, I like had a drink with one of our teammates just because they were like, "Please, can I have a drink with you?"
Like
and I was like,
graduating, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they were graduating. Which
it was, yeah, the people I lived with as well, and they were like, "Can I please have a drink with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So that happened, and then I believe it was, yeah, right after Italy or even during Italy that I started opening up to it. And then senior year came around and I was like, all right, I'm not going anywhere past this. I don't mind drinking now. And I think a lot changed because I turned 21. Mm-hmm. So the fact of turning 21, honestly, I was just like, all right, now I'll give it a try. So that happened. And then I went a bit too much overboard. Like everything I didn't experience from high school up until college, I pretty much lived out in that semester, like I've told you. And it was a bit too much. Honestly, looking back, it wasn't great, but it was like that immature side to me of my lack of experience. But then I got tired of it. And something that happened one of the last times I went out, which honestly is about to be a year, which again, I'm not promoting. I'm not saying that's healthy. That's just me. But I think one of the biggest hacks to going out and feeling great the next day is drinking sparkling water, because you're hydrating yourself. It doesn't taste like still water, like just something boring. And then if somebody comes up to you and they're drinking and they're like, oh, what are you drinking? You don't say anything. You just give them a sip and they're like, oh, vodka soda. And you're like, yes, exactly. And you just let it be. Not that it's wrong. Like I would open up and tell them it's just a club soda.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a hack because nobody's going to question it. You're having a good time. It tastes pretty good in my opinion, especially just add a lime in there. It tastes great. And the next day you feel fucking fantastic.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's honestly a great conversation starter with random people, right? Like how many times have you been in a college setting where a random person either wants a sip of your drink or they're asking if you want to drink? And then that's kind of where a conversation starts. And for me, it wasn't sparkling water. It was always like Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola. And hey, sometimes people just need a refreshment. They need some sugar. I'm like, here, have some. I'm cool with it. But yeah, like some people, like you had to experience it. You experienced it. You knew it worked. Or if it didn't work, then you're just like, hey, I kind of burned out of it. And then you're fine. And you realize you can move on. You know, some people just need to experience it. For me, I mean, for now, I've been pretty cool with like not trying it. So, yeah.
How do you feel about this trend that's going on now that it's like popular not to drink and to be sober? There's this entire movement of like, oh, it's time to be sober. Out of the blue, like in a culture that completely promotes drinking and recreational drugs, it's interesting, I think, not to judge or to criticize, but I think it's interesting that there is this sober movement going on.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit silly. I think it's silly because take everything away. Like we're just people. You don't need substances to have a good time. Like the way I kind of view life and the stuff I put in my body is just kind of like to help me survive, to like feel good, right? Like eat a piece of steak, drink some water. Like if you want to have a soda here and there as like a little bit of a treat. And I know people like wine or something like that and you want to have a nice drink, go ahead. But I feel like it's kind of weird how on social media it's taking off kind of like a trend and people are like kind of I don't know, just making it like a thing. It doesn't need to be a thing. It's just, it is or it isn't. You either like, you drink or you just don't. But when it becomes almost like a personality trait and you have to let everyone know and you're like kind of look at me kind of thing, I don't know. I just feel like it's a simple thing. You either do or you don't. You don't need to tell anyone about it. It's just it's kind of like a personal like health choice or preference of like treating yourself. But that's just I think it's a little bit silly sometimes, and I don't like that it's like a trend. It shouldn't be a trend. It should just be a decision you make.